So I'm very privileged to be here. I have been associated with the IEEE for 24 years, and it's a very proud organization. So we are an international standards-making organization that has traditionally focused on technology standards. And we take that responsibility very, very seriously, and we've developed great expertise around that. What we're moving toward now is taking a look at standards making as it applies to individual capacity and competency in engineering. And the reason that we're moving more toward helping people in their lifelong learning in their careers is pretty simple. It's because we see the problems that the world faces, the scale and the scope is global and increasingly complex, right? That's pretty obvious. But we also see that there is a shortage of engineers who can think at a systems level. So there's capacity of some talent, there's shortages in other areas, and there's especially shortage for people who can really are systems thinkers, who can think at the systems level. Interdisciplinary, multifaceted, multi-layered solutions across a global scale. So we see that the solutions for the world's problems are based, in engineering solutions, but there aren't enough really highly skilled engineers. And we feel it's our responsibility to help address that. We need to get involved so that there is plentiful workforce to address some very significant problems. Furthermore, when you look at the technology that underlies some of these solutions, it's software intensive. Not to say that there isn't a lot of other technology involved, especially communications technology, but really very software intensive. And for whatever reason, the Computer Society decided about 35 years ago that we were going to really try to understand if software development could be deployed like an engineering discipline. And it wasn't a slam dunk or an easy answer by any means. There were many, many issues to work out across 35 years. Language design, algorithm design, all the IEEEs, reliability, scalability, all those things had to be studied and understood at a really theoretical level in computer science, and then they had to be deployed, and they had to be tried, and then they had to be studied and learned from. And so we started to build the building blocks, trying to understand if software engineering could really exist as an engineering discipline. And it's only been since about the mid-1990s as we saw the Software Engineering Institute work to develop the capability maturity model and the process controls that implied, and all of the standardization that came up around software process, that it really all started to come together. And in 2000, we started a certification to look at whether or not we could actually develop a certification that could be applied for software developers, very consistent with the professional engineer's certificate or license or any other kind of computer engineering. And we kept at it, we kept working at it, and in about 2004, we developed a guide to the body of knowledge. It's called the Software Engineering Body of Knowledge, or SWEBOK. It's an open access document. And you can go to swebok.org and download it. And we took it to the International Standards Organization, and we said to ISO, we think at this point there's enough evidence to suggest that these are legitimate, systematic, quantifiable, persistent qualities that you can use to build software. And last year, ISO adopted the SWEBOK as an international standard for software engineering. And at this point, it looks as though you really can look at software engineering now developing as a full-fledged profession. And it's very young in its life cycle to be looking at that. It's only 40 years old. And if you think of the development of other professions over time, law or medicine, it takes hundreds of years sometimes to develop a profession. But the urgency is so great that IEEE believed that we needed to really look hard at software really soon, because we're putting it in airplanes and in medical devices, and we're trusting it to run mission critical, life critical, business critical functions. So one more point about the workforce too. We observed that the workforce would become global and mobile. So we made a decision that we really had to work at the global level, that was our role, and that other associations had a national role or a regional role. But we felt our role was to try to develop a global view of competency in software engineering. Because if you look at something like the open source movement, right, where people from all over the world came together and collaborated together, they never met, they never, were in the same place, but they built something really, truly great, right? That self-credentialing, where they came together and they decided who the gurus were in their group, that's going to have a place in software development. But there needs to be another level where there's kind of a trust level of engineering profession being applied. So they're both going to exist, coexist together, and they may have the same people in the population, but anyway, the bottom line is we really think that it's time for industry, academia, and government to take a hard look at building systematic, quantifiable, maintainable software using engineering principles and techniques. And that's what we've been working on, and that's the product that we're bringing to the market to see if it's useful to help develop a workforce that can develop software. So I hope that makes sense. But basically, that's what we're trying to bring to the world.